Thank you very much for having me. Now I'd like to entertain your questions.
When are you going to run for governor?
I was just going to say the same thing. I think we need you to do that. You've got it all pretty much lined out there.
The current governor has 3 years and 8 months to go.
Oh, something like that.
Right now, the one thing I'm focused on is supporting the governor we have. Whether I agree or disagree is irrelevant. He is our governor, just like Barack Obama is our president. Whether I agree or disagree, he is our president. So the one thing that I want to do is I want to try to support our governor so that he can and will be successful. Now, whether he heeds advice and whether he does the right thing, that's something totally different. What's the old saying? You can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But my background is one where I look for the most economical way to do things. I don't look for the way that hires as many people to do something or that has the biggest organizational structure to do it. That's just not how I think. That's not my background. That's not innate to me. I've never owned a new car, for example. Not that I have a desire to, but the simple fact of the matter is that I was raised by parents that are close to this area. My father was born and raised on Sand Mountain, Boaz, Albertville. My mother was born and raised in Gadsden. So I was always taught if it costs $2 and all you got's $1, you can't afford it. So further to that, I've never lived beyond my means. You know, when I had enough money to buy something, I bought it. Until then, I didn't. And that's the problem. Is I want to go back to something that Richard Lamb said, and I only go to it because I don't want to misquote it. But we have become a nation that wants instant gratification. We want education without study, wealth without work, freedom without participation, and democracy without citizenship. People don't want to earn things. And your parents, my parents, they wanted to. When they had enough money saved, they bought it. Nowadays, everybody can get credit and they can go get something, but they haven't earned it. So I've always subscribed to when I can afford it, I will get it. And therefore I will own it and I can enjoy it without the worry of somebody taking it. Yes, ma'am.
Is anybody in government consulting with you at present and looking to adopt any of your programs?
The foundation is very new. As Ellen pointed out, everything keeps changing on the website, and that's because everything is very fluid. Literally, the website went live last Friday. Many people, both friends and acquaintances, referred me to the governor to be appointed to his newly formed commission for improving state government. In the end, I was not appointed, despite the fact of everybody sending communications, including several members of the House and Senate, to his staff and to him. Now, in the end, it was a blessing in disguise. And let me explain that. If I had been appointed to it, based on looking at all the other people, it would have been 1 versus 21 others. You can guess who the one is. But if I were appointed to it, I would be part of it, and therefore it would be unprofessional to criticize it. So given that I'm not on it, I can now criticize it. But by the same token, what I've been advised I have to be very careful about saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. Simply put, and I've taken this position, what the state needs is a good rectal exam and an enema.
right on.
What the state needs to do is it needs to eliminate areas where it has the duplication. Let me give an example. Remember in my comments, I mentioned about the state auditing department. It's a newly formed. Let me explain to you. A lot of these agencies have their own accounting people, and they have their own auditing person or persons. Now let me explain the purpose of an audit. An audit is to be outside and objective. Okay? Not to be performed by an insider. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist there. Basically, the accounting guy walks down to the auditing guy and says, look, I know you got to certify and do an audit. Here's all the reports. Just sign off on them. That is why I said take every auditor from throughout the state and all these agencies, put them in an independent freestanding department. And when something needs to be audited, it's almost like having their names in a fishbowl. Somebody reaches in and says, okay, John Smith, this is where you're going today. John Smith has no idea when he walks in that door where he will be, what he will be auditing, whatsoever. And that's the way an audit should work. And that's just one example of what's wrong. Furthermore, I mentioned, and it was a long title here, the State Marketing, Advertising, and Communications Department. I think I got that right. Did I get that right, or did I get my State Advertising, Marketing, and Communications Department? The state, through its various agencies, departments, the state parks, tourism, all that, spends literally millions of dollars to outside firms, marketing research, ad agencies, video production, and so forth. Well, let me get an example. If you haven't gone to our website, I encourage you to do so. But there are a number of state vocational colleges that have graphic design programs. What I would advocate doing is that's why I mentioned utilizing internships, apprenticeships, and senior level class projects. If the state tourism needs to create an ad campaign, let it be a class project for the graphics and advertising curriculum at one of the state vocational colleges. These students need things to do, to learn, and it's a win-win. So, but again, that's how I think. Now, I bring that up to only mention the fact that the website was designed by a college student.
Well, they're doing a good job.
So, but we need to utilize all the things. Furthermore, and I want to elaborate on the auto, that the state motor pool, the transportation and services department. The only department, agency, or branch in the state of Alabama that needs the best and new cars is our state troopers. Everybody else needs transportation to go from A to B and back to A, okay? Now, when these police cruisers are retired, that does not mean that they're dead and they have no use, okay? They still have use as transportation, which is why I say these vehicles need to be turned in. They need to have all the sirens and the little plastic wall in there to separate the trooper from the criminals, and retrofit that car to become transportation. And then all of these other state agencies and branches would use these cars. Again, I want to go back to something I said. Nothing more and nothing less when I was referring to the legal pads and the pens. Now, a lot of people, that's just one example, the legal pads and the pens. But you got to understand, nickels make dimes, dimes make quarters, quarters make dollars. It all adds up. And I use the parking meter analogy in a city such as Birmingham. Has many parking meters throughout the city. Do you know that those parking meters are a noticeable contributor to the city of Birmingham's revenue stream? So those nickels, dimes, and quarters add up is the point I'm trying to make here.
We took them out. They used to have money square. We took them out.
Well, those nickels, dimes, and quarters add up. Yes, ma'am.
I've got a couple of questions. The first one is, you suggested that Alabama should use cash to form a state-owned bank like North Dakota has done.
Yes, ma'am.
How much do you know about the North Dakota banking system? Things like who audits it? And I agree with you about that state auditing business. It's a farce. It's horrible. You got the fox guarding the chicken coop. Is it fairly audited? And because most of our founding fathers were very much against a state bank, and Alabama's a state. A state bank can be a really bad thing if it's not managed properly, and I'm a little concerned about that.
Well, let me just.
Otherwise, I agree with you.
Okay, let me just say this. I would encourage you to Google North Dakota state-owned bank. They've had their own state-owned bank for a little less than 100 years. Okay, it's not like they just did it. It's not like it was done within the last 20 years. It's not like they did it during the peak of the stock market. Yeah. So in the course of roughly 100 years, I'm rounding. Okay, there's obviously been peaks and valleys relative to the economy. And yet, this state-owned bank has weathered the storm and been a good performer. And
is it the only bank?
Yes, it's the only state-owned bank.
I mean, in North Dakota, it's the
yes,
only
ma'am.
bank you can use in North Dakota?
It is a state-owned bank, and all of the states, all the departments, all the agencies, all the branches, anything that is state, banks with and deposits its money into that bank.
But
There are private banks as well.
There are other banks.
No, yes, in the state of North Dakota, yes, but the state only puts its money in its own bank. It does not bank with any other banks whatsoever.
Okay, so you said that like the Federal Reserve, and I said, oh God help us.
Right. Well, the comparison to the Federal Reserve is that the state-owned bank lends money out as the Federal Reserve does. And it lends money out to its state citizens and state businesses, and it stimulates the state economy. In other words, that bank in North Dakota would not lend money out to someone in Birmingham, Alabama.
Right, okay, I understand. So not really like the Federal Reserve. I panicked when you said like Federal Reserve.
Well, to the extent that it stimulates its own state economy by lending money out to its own people and businesses. Oh, it doesn't print money. No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay, but